I'm here with Mustafa Akyol of the Hurriyet daily newspaper from Turkey. Mustafa, how do Turkish citizens perceive what's going on in the Arab world right now?
There are Turks and there are Turks. I mean, of course, Turkey, like any other society, has different opinions on different things. But I would say the general attitude is towards supporting democracy movements in the Middle East. In Tunisia, in Egypt, certainly the government at least supported the people who wanted democracy and the transition. In Libya, too, Turkey tried to negotiate between Gaddafi and rebels for a while, but then Turkey supported NATO operations. And in Syria, Turkey supports the opposition very strongly, although it did not turn into an intervention in Syria, as some people hoped, because although Turkey feels for the opposition, outside the Turkish government thinks it's risky for Turkey to enter any military clash with the Syrian army.
You speak of it in the past tense, but do you think that the prospects of a Turkish intervention into Syria are not going to happen, or could that potentially be something we see?
A Turkish intervention in Syria can be possible only if there is a UN-sanctioned international operation like there was in Libya. So Turkey can be a part of that. Or if like huge number of refugees come to Turkey, there are already refugees in Turkey, but it becomes hundreds of thousands of people, Turkey might use its international right again to have a border, like a buffer zone. However, I don't expect a Turkish military conquering Damascus. I mean, don't expect that. Maybe I would like to see that, honestly, as a supporter of the opposition in Syria, but also it's not something that is supported by most people in Turkey, and I don't think the government has that in mind, which would be a great, great adventure for any country, including Turkey.
Israel and Turkey were once very close allies. Now there's been a rift between the two governments. Do you believe that there's a possibility of reconciliation anytime soon?
I do hope that there will be a reconciliation between Turkey and Israel. I think two countries still share a lot of values. The rift, unfortunately, came with the Mavi Marmara incident. I know it's understood differently in Israel and very differently in Turkey. But the Turkish government's position is that the Turkish government demands an apology from Israel for that, and unless that is not there, relations will not get back to normal. Well, of course, it's up to the Israeli government to decide, but that's the condition on the Turkish side.
We know that there are differences between the Israeli government and the Turkish government, but how is Israel perceived among the Turkish public?
Well, Turkey is not a society with a history of anti-Semitism. Turks and Jews have been friends for centuries, and Turkey has supported Israel, but also Turks felt strongly in favor of Palestinians for a long time. Generally, Turks are in favor of Israel when there is peace in the Middle East, but when there are civilian deaths on the Palestinian side, whatever that is, Turks get very angry about that. And this recent rift basically began with the Operation Cast Lead. I understand the Israeli reasonings for that, but in Turkey it was perceived as an unacceptable attack on a civilian population, and that's the actual root of the real rift, because before Operation Cast Lead, the Erdogan government in Turkey and Israel were working very closely. I mean, Erdogan visited Israel. I mean, he came to power in 2002 until 2008. There was no Israeli-Turkish problem. But that incident was perceived in Turkey in a different lens than it is understood in Israel again. So a lot of Turks reacted to that, and Erdogan voiced that reaction in a very strong language. And that initiated a rift, which went on with the Mavi Marmara. But I should remind one thing. There was another time that Turkish-Israeli relations were degraded to the current level, and it was 1982 when Israel annexed Jerusalem. They went back to normal in 1991 when Madrid peace talks began. So this happened before. It went on for a while, but things got back to normal. So if things can get back to normal, I hope to see that.
Some have concluded that the reason that Turkey has turned to an Islamist government is because of the fact that Turkey hasn't been accepted into the EU. Is that, in your opinion, an accurate assessment?
Well, first of all, the current government in Turkey rejects being called Islamist. I mean, they say they're a conservative party, moral values, family, so on, but not Islamist. Secondly, this government is actually the government which has made the most effort for EU for a long time. Well, EU is not very welcoming, so they just open up to everybody, like from China to Russia to Africa.
Some have said that potentially the reason that Turkey has elected a government that it seems to be more Islamist is because it has not been accepted into the European Union. Do you agree with that assessment?
I think it's not possible to factually agree with that assessment because the current government, the so-called Islamist government, they reject that definition, had the greatest EU effort in Turkish history. I mean, they were the ones who initiated the process, made a lot of reforms. But it turned out that not all Europeans, particularly the French, which we Turks took as an example for a century, I don't know why, said no. I mean, there's no way that you can be a part of the EU. So that rejection from the European side made the Turkish society less enthusiastic about the EU. So other foreign policy options became more visible. But even when Turkey was making inroads into the EU, the government was initiating an opening in Africa because Africa is a big market. The foreign policy of Turkey is mostly driven by business interests. Turkey is opening up 70 new embassies in Africa because it's not an Islamist heaven. Actually, most countries are pagan, like animist, or African is not an Islamic continent, but because there are a lot of job opportunities, and Turkey is second after China as investor and building contractor in Africa. So I think it would be wrong to say that. Yes, the fact that EU is not welcoming to Turkey has declined Turkish enthusiasm about the EU, but I think also it's a pragmatic reality for Turkish government to open up to four corners of the world and to do business with everybody.
Do you believe that Turkey can serve as a Middle East peace broker?
I do hope that Turkey can serve as a Middle East peace broker. Turkey tried to do that in Iraq between the different factions. Turkey is trying to do that with Iraqi Kurds and others, and even getting support from Iraqi Kurds. Turkey tried to do between Iran and US and tried to persuade Iran to abandon its dangerous nuclear program. Turkey tried to do that between Israel and Syria. Unfortunately, that didn't work. So Turkey tries. Whether it works or not, that's a different question. I very much hope that Turkey can contribute to the peace process between the Palestinians and Israelis. And in a sense, Turkey has contributed that by trying to persuade Hamas to abandon terrorism and violence. And actually, we saw the signs of that recently. Hamas is shifting from its more militant terrorist line, at least to a non-aggression mode right now. And that is partly related with Hamas's shift from the Iranian line to the line that has been supported by Turkey from the very beginning. So I think Turkish influence in the Middle East is actually positive for Israel. In terms of creating a axis that is respectful to Islam, has conservative values, but which is not anti-Israel and which is not radical at all. I hope, though, that this will get better if Turkey and Israel again become friends. But I must say that as someone who wants to see Turkey and Israel as good friends again, an apology on the Mavi incident is just a necessity on the Turkish side.
We're seeing a rise in Islamism in this region. Do you believe that the values of democracy and the values of Islam are reconcilable?
Values of democracy and Islam are reconcilable. It depends on which kind of Islam are we talking about. And I think it's true to say that for every religion. I mean, what kind of Judaism or Christianity are we talking about would be relevant to our discussions on liberalism or democracy. There are obviously anti-democratic, illiberal forces, but not every Islamic society has them on the same level. And Turkey's actually Islamic history has been quite different. I mean, for example, in Turkey, we don't have a phenomenon of the Salafis. They don't simply exist in Turkey because the Ottoman Empire never had that group, that sort of Wahhabi, for example, idea. Turkey has Islamic conservatives. Some of them sound like the Muslim Brotherhood, but even they have evolved and changed and became more pragmatic over the past 10 years. And because people are not simply shaped by their religious opinions. They can be loyal to religion, but their opinions about the world are shaped by many different factors. So I do think actually that we are in a process that more democratic, more liberal-minded interpretations of Islam will emerge, as I try to explain in my book, Islam Without Extremism, Muslim Case for Liberty. And obviously the more radical versions out there. But I think everybody would be making a mistake if they say Islam is only the radicals and that's the only true Islam. Then we will be actually supporting those radicals. We should give a chance for more liberal and democratic-minded interpretations of Islam to emerge. And I think Turkey is not a too bad place to see that emerge.
Mustafa Akyol of the Hurriyet Daily, thank you so much for taking the time, and we hope you enjoy the conference.
My pleasure. Anytime.